Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. As I was saying, right, the dominant paradigm today is deep learning, which is based on access to data, and platforms which have successfully managed to create this data repositories continue to have the best models. So, for example, the platforms that you're familiar with, Google Search, YouTube, TikTok, or even Twitter, maybe Facebook. If you analyze these, there's a technical term for these platforms, which is called two-sided markets. Typically, when I'm purchasing something, or let's say when I'm interacting with somebody through a business transaction, I usually have one side with whom I'm talking, and we are doing some exchange. But these platforms are what are called two-sided markets, in that they create a situation where users can come in at no cost, right? So usually, I don't know how many of you remember, I'm old enough to remember when Gmail started. It was very interesting because they were giving so much free space as part of Gmail. You just didn't have that space with Yahoo, Outlook, etc. So they offer one side of the market, usually free or close to free services. And the other side of the market, the second side, is the one which is sold something with the fact that there are users on this platform, right? So for example, Google search, you can search the entire web today for free, but the way you search is useful to Google to know what search results to show, and also useful to show you ads, which are contextually relevant. So this is how, this is by far the most dominant paradigm for deployment of AI today, right? There are, of course, lots of attempts at using AI for different things. But the dominant paradigm is that these platforms, which have become so big, right? Today, YouTube, I last saw, has over 1.5 billion users, active daily users, right? So that's a pretty large number. Other platforms also are pretty large, right? And this is to be expected, right? Because these technologies have such a strong positive feedback loop. This is to be expected. You'll have large platforms which have a huge advantage. Microsoft has been investing in Bing search for over a decade now, right? And Microsoft has money, has talent, but it's hard to beat the value of data that Google is able to collect from these platforms. So that is one thing we should keep in mind, that AI seems to be most effective when you build these large platforms and deploy them. There are concerns with this. We were talking about ethics earlier. So there are concerns with such large-scale use of AI. There are large concerns with privacy, whether users' data is being correctly stored, correctly used, correctly attributed, correctly deleted, etc. There are issues with sovereignty. My data should belong to me, or my country's data should belong to my country, my state's data should belong to state. Usual things which we take for granted in physical things don't apply in data. So that is a concern. There are also concerns with what I would call human agency, right? So typically when I want to use a service, when I see TV, right, I can turn it off when I want to. And the TV is trying to make me maybe see a particular channel more and more by giving ads, etc. But that is about it. But these digital platforms, they are designed to maximize attention of people using them. They really want people to get addicted to those platforms, right? And if you use AI tools for things like that, they are very effective. AI tools will maximize addiction. If you give it that as an objective function to your AI model, it will do that. And that is also leading to issues with especially teenagers getting addicted to Instagram and so on. And finally, there are issues with bias, right? So we know that Twitter had banned some important people. Are they a platform to represent users' data, or are they a platform to curtail opinion becomes a question. So there are these issues. I'll not go into them. That is a separate issue in itself, a separate talk in itself. But the key thing I wanted to highlight was that the dominant application of AI is today on platforms, and that will continue. That is not going away, right? The amount of data that these platforms generate is a huge advantage. That was the first part of the talk on platforms where AI is being used today. And I want to reiterate that we have made significant progress in the last 10 years that's making all this possible. Sometimes we don't appreciate how much progress is also being made because they happen very gradually. The second part, I wanted to talk about India's unique opportunity. Now, we can also say, okay, let's go ahead and build our own platforms, right? Because we know we need all this data. And one way to build this data is to make these free platforms, get people on, and then sell data for various things, right? Is that the way India should approach deployment of large-scale AI, right? In India, luckily, we have a second option, which has been shown to be quite effective. And I'm calling this protocols, right? So if you look at the work that has happened in the tech space in India over the last decade and a half, there has been this movement of societal platforms, or what also people call digital public goods. A good example initially is Aadhaar. So people like Nandan Nilekani, they were involved in championing the cause of Aadhaar. At that time, it was a digital identity. Today, it has become a unique digital identity with lots of use cases, with the enormous goal of trying to give every person a biometric identity, which can be used for various things, right? And it took almost a decade, lot of public debate, lot of scrutiny, lot of legal cases to finally get it to a place where it is now a digital public good that is touching almost every Indian, right? Some of the numbers are mind-boggling, right? The number of biometric evaluations that are done per day in India, or the number of transactions that are done to bank accounts of people with Aadhaar account numbers, right? Another example is UPI, right? Which I think all of you, or at least, would be knowing or using, right? Which is a way to pay digitally with very low overheads, right? So the transaction costs are often close to zero for individuals like us. Sometimes the merchants pay some money, but it's close to zero. And gone are the days when the card companies were taking 2% commission on transactions, right? They still continue to exist, but I think their days are numbered, right? India is doing huge number of transactions through UPI, and interestingly, what is crucial if you see about UPI, it was not a platform. If you compare, for example, something like Google search and UPI. UPI was a protocol or standard by which two entities in India, which are financially recognized entities, can pay to each other, right? And it was an open standard, meaning that other companies can come and build technology on top of it, right? So you can have Google come and build Google Pay, or PhonePe come and build their application, or Paytm use this and so on, right? This is important because we would like to have multiple entities come and build technologies on top of common protocols, which people can choose from. Suppose only the government had access to UPI and nobody else, then we would be stuck with one app. In fact, Bheem app is not so bad, but we'll just have that option. But today we have so many options for UPI apps, right? And that is because the protocol remaining open, remaining something that is backed by the government, allows for other people to come and build on top of, right? Another example is FASTag. We have FASTag now implemented throughout the country that is collecting data. You can just drive through the checkposts. In fact, people are now talking about adding satellites, so that satellite connections, so that if I drive from point A to B, I only get charged from A to B, and not for, let's say, A to C, which may be very far away, right? So you can exactly get toll depending on how far you go. Another example, very new example you might not have heard of, is ONDC. Which is a new standard on decentralized open e-commerce. Today, e-commerce is equal to 2 or 3 big players, but that doesn't have to be like that. If the government creates an open standard for how two people can transact in e-commerce, then people can come and build compatible applications and things are interoperable, right? So I would submit to you that in India, through the efforts of public-minded individuals and organizations, we have been able to demonstrate another very different way of creating large systems. One way was the platforms that the commercial companies have created. The other way is to do something with a democratic government backing it and open standards built with this, which is state of the art, and actually getting private people to build on top of it, right? Now, we have been able to successfully do this in a few domains: identity, payments, transactions, hopefully now e-commerce, and there's some other stuff happening called DEPA, which is for data access with content and so on, similar things happening in healthcare and so on. So I think a lot more will happen in that space. But the interesting thing is we still have the same benefits that platforms have. We have huge amount of data coming in. We have, when people get, if let's say ONDC kicks in, you will have e-commerce data flowing through ONDC. And different entities will have access to use that data to build technologies on top of, right? So I believe that in India, instead of building these platforms which are two-sided, giving free services to individuals and paid services to corporates, we have the opportunity of building digital public goods on top of which we can build AI. Now, the question is, what kind of AI would sit on top of these digital public goods? And here I submit that we need to build open source AI technologies. As somebody was saying, there are ethical issues with AI. And one excellent way to address these ethical issues is to build AI models in the open source, keep it open for scrutiny by people, for analysis by people, and then deploy it for public good. For example, if I wanted to have an AI model to see ads, right? So ads are useful in some sense. You may be looking for, I don't know, maybe a jeans pant to buy, and then maybe you've not bought it, and there is a sale happening after 2 days. You want to know that there's a sale, so it's somewhat useful. But how do we think of building something like an ad system or a personalized recommendation system in the open source? For this, you need to ensure that user data is available. What are people browsing and what are people buying? This should come from an open platform like something like ONDC. It should be available in a centralized repository, which is run by a foundation that is backed by the government. And people who are interested to access this data for commercial purpose should get consent from users who actually own the data. And if there is sufficient consent to access the data, they go access the data, build AI models on top of it, and give back services to users who may then decide whether those services are useful or not, may have a choice whether to use a recommendation system or not. Right? Imagine what platforms would look like if you had this choice. Today, if you go to YouTube, YouTube is recommending some videos that you should watch. Some of it is relevant, some of it is YouTube's interest in some sense. What if you could switch the recommendation system to a system that is built by IIT Madras? Right? IIT Madras might build an open source system for recommendation on YouTube and make it available, and you have a choice to use it. Right? So this is what is possible with the digital public goods that are being built in India, because they are a stacked system, they are open system, they enable people to get consented access to data and give back AI services, which people have a choice to either use or not. Right? So my key takeaway to you on this topic of protocols is to follow a bit carefully what has happened in the last 15 years in the space of Aadhaar, UPI, ONDC, FASTag, DEPA, etc. We know some of this because we hear in the media, but as technologists, as people interested in AI, take a closer look at how these systems are built. What is the underlying architecture? What is the underlying open protocol? You can go and see them in GitHub, etc. What is the protocol that is driving it, etc. Right? So these are cutting edge technologies, and I think we should learn a bit more about it. And there are many venues to do that. So that is the second part. I do believe that India can take a very different route in AI, and it can be through these digital public goods. Now, coming to the third topic of what we can do, or one particular option that we have, is to build for people. Right? I already mentioned Sarabhai, who said that we should be second to none in applying technology for the real problems of man. So while you as students or professionals might want to first understand the technology involved, right? And that is very important. Maybe I'll spend a minute on that. When you think of studying AI, how should you approach it, right? Today, AI is used so much that there are very different ways of looking at it, right? Somebody will say, hey, go learn Python, and then learn some TensorFlow, and you become an AI expert. Okay, Dr. Bhera was talking about how we should take a classroom approach, right? My submission to you, having been a professor, is not to take shortcuts. Right? If you just learn Python and then learn TensorFlow do some GitHub code replication and run it, etc., you will not learn much. Now, why do I say that? I say that because firstly, the technology is moving too fast. What you have learned today will get outdated in 12 months, right? So if you don't know what is happening under the hood, it would be very hard to keep pace, right? And the second thing is there is not much value generation that happens with people just running these tools. When you think about companies who are building AI services for others, or startups who are doing something good in AI, it is not in training one particular model or running something or doing some analysis with the model. It's often end to end. It's often, here is a problem statement, here is the data that I have, and here is what is currently happening. What can ML do, right? So we need to take this end to end approach where you should know how to translate a problem that looks like a real world problem into what can be done with ML realistically. I say this realistically very much because often I hear from companies, from students, yeah, I have this data, I want to now make it an AI AI problem. Often there's not enough data, there's not enough high quality data, and so on, right? So it's important to learn this realistic calibration of when can something be solved with AI, and then what technologies to use. So that part is required, end-to-end thinking, how to take a problem and deploy it. The other thing is, if you see under the hood, what is really machine learning today? It is primarily two things. One, it is some bit of mathematics, right? If you think about it, many of us might not have studied these subjects very carefully in our college days or school also, but you need typically good understanding of linear algebra, probability, and statistics. There are many people who are building AI systems without knowing any of this. And sometimes it works. But again, my strong recommendation is to get some reasonable strength in these areas. What is linear algebra? When do we think in terms of linear algebra, right? What is the basics of probability? Probability is one of those areas which we think is very, very easy, but the deeper you go, it shows more mystery. Okay, so I think probability you have to be very careful. Right? And statistics. Statistics, again, we know statistics if we understand what is average, what is median, and so on. There's so much to statistics. We don't do enough statistics even in the deep learning research community. We should be doing it. But as learners, it's very important to focus on some key ideas in statistics. So this is one thing, you should have some confidence in yourself. Even if I don't know something in linear algebra, I can actually pick up a textbook in linear algebra and understand what it is. That level of confidence is required. The other thing under the hood is, of course, programming. But programming is a bit tricky here because sometimes we think if I open Google Collaboratory and start typing some code in Python, that is programming. That is not true, right? Because when we really deploy a machine learning system, we need to think of many other things. It is not just about building the model. How to get it to run on an Android device? How to put it on the cloud using some containers? How to ensure that this is running in a scalable way, even if 100 users are using it, 1,000 users, 1 million users, right? So all of this is not in Python, right? All of this is more fundamental, either in the case of Android, it is Java or some specific environments. In the cloud case, there are methods through Python itself, but you need to understand a bit more about streams and protocols, buffers, and so on. So there is much more to programming than just the Python part, right? So just to summarize, as people who are trying to learn AI, please don't take shortcuts. It's okay to take few more months, but try to get a sense of both the mathematics involved and also the non-Python part of the coding, right? So this is important. So this is one thing you can do to learn it more robustly. But let us say you have learned it. Then what are the opportunities that we have? I sincerely feel that there's quite a bit of opportunity in building AI for people, right? What I mean by this is every society is very heterogeneous, right? Everybody has different interests, different requirements, and just building one Google tool, building one YouTube, one WhatsApp is not the solution for everybody, right? everybody needs different kinds of AI empowered experiences, right? Consider, for example, an old couple sitting in somewhere in Cuttack, okay? And they, maybe the kids are living outside or something, and the parents are there. Now they are going to doctors, they are getting X-rays, they are getting reports, and so on. Now they would like to have an AI tool whereby they can digitize their medical records, right? So I want to digitize all the medical records I have. Now, this seems like a very big challenge, but if we build the right AI tools, just by taking photos of all the documents, it is imaginable that you can have a very well put repository of all health records of that couple, right? So this is an example of building AI specifically for the use case of someone not being technically very savvy, but wanting to digitize their medical records, right? Take another example. I was giving example of Sambalpuri. I don't know how many of you know, but All India Radio has a station in Sambalpur, right? They actually have ODI programs and Sambalpuri news every day. So one thing that you may ask is, can I create subtitles for Sambalpuri All India Radio? Maybe I can't hear, right? And can I give you a text transcript of whatever was said, right? Just by listening to it. There are, of course, many Sambalpuri news stations privately also. There are movies also, and so on. So this is a specific need of people in Western Odisha, right? A small group, but they have a need. And there is somebody who has to find and solve that problem, right? You can think of many such examples. And the key here is to be armed with the technology, that here is the set of tools that I have, AI tools, and then go look out in society and see what problems they have. And this is around us. This is not there in social media, or this is not there in books. You have to go and find out from people what their challenges are, and then reliably and efficiently build solutions for them, right? And this will not become the next Google, right? But it will be. But these small services will have users. It will not require. It will not maybe require millions of dollars from VCs, but it will have people who will benefit from it and will pay for it, right? So this is just one of the things. One should also aspire to build the next Google. One should aspire to build the next YouTube, and we should do that, right? But since we talked about doing things for our state, this is one thing I feel. Of course, this applies throughout India and throughout the globe also. There is no need for common tools to be pushed to entire globe. Everybody in every region should think of individual problems and build technologies for that, right? Yeah, so I'll stop with that. It's already 10:50. So I just want to recap, right? So I talked about three things. Platforms, most of the AI work is happening on large platforms, which are very uniquely and favorably positioned because of the loop they have between users, data, AI models, and more users, right? And that is not easy to break. People in Europe, etc., are talking about legislation, breaking companies, regulation, and so on. But I don't think all of those are meaningful things to do. India has shown a very different way by building digital public goods. And I feel the next wave of things that could be done is to build open source AI technologies on top of these digital public goods. And the third point was that we all have an opportunity to find problems around us and to solve it with the tools that exist today. With that, I'll thank you. And if there are any questions or comments, I'm happy to engage with you.
There is one question for you, recommendation or white paper. Tapos Nayak is asking you, any recommendation, book or white paper to follow?
It depends on what you want to follow up on. There, as you might be knowing, there are many good courses on AI, etc. If you want to understand AI from a technological point of view, if you want a broad sense of what AI can do, etc., there is a Niti Aayog paper. I think it's a few years old now, maybe 2 years old. They did a large study on, if you just search Niti Aayog AI report, you'll find it. There are other white papers from many other people. In the tech community, there is, if you're interested in AI for social good, that is a keyword, AI for social good. You'll find a lot of talks on YouTube, etc. There are also tracks in conferences. So yeah, depends on what you're looking for. If you have something specific in mind, you can write to me and I can point you to it.
Suppose hope you got your answer. Here you have somebody who is building a community at an Indian scale. So AI for Bharat. So please go ahead. Technology and community building are not different. So each of so students, you have an opportunity to get inspired by listening to Dr. Panda more and more. Go for it.
Yeah, I see a question about I've used Indic BERT and Mural with the one NLP task, but performance of model is less as compared to MBERT. Why is it? Kusum, it'll be good that you write to us. So just for those who don't know, Indic BERT is a model that is released by us on how to model Indian language text. Mural is something that is released by Google, and MBERT is also something I think that Google has released. So if there's a specific use case, I'm happy to discuss that on email. Right? I just put my email here so that you're able to write to me. Can I talk a little bit more on computer vision and its implementation in agriculture to help farmers? Yeah, so people have done some work in this space, especially for classifying crop diseases. If I take a photograph of a leaf, I should be able to say what the disease is and then recommend typically to you what you should do. But the challenge in India has been, as opposed to the West, where there are very large farms and few farmers. In India, typically the dissemination of information happens not directly to the farmer, who are not having as much experience with technology, but typically through intermediaries, right? So there are typically people associated with agriculture universities who go there and help them and so on. So I think we need to do a bit more to figure out the right way to deploy such technology. There is technology, take a photograph and you can say that, okay, this looks like that insect, and so please put this pesticide and so on, right? That is there, but it has not taken off in a big way. One other thing which has more potential in vision is through satellite data. So there are now many satellite companies in India, also some startups also that we are advising. The goal there is to in this low orbit satellites, right? So low Earth orbits, so satellites, LEO satellites. You have the potential to take with very high resolution photographs of a farm, and it is large enough. Just the photograph of one farm is large enough for you to find things like what is the state of the crop. Is it okay to harvest now, right? So we are actually able to do that kind of thing, and that might be more meaningful in India. And as you might have seen, the government of India has removed restrictions in private use of mapping data that will open up many opportunities in satellite and image analysis. And I think that will be one good place where you can focus.
Yeah, thanks. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Actually, we have a little bit because of these glitches, the systems have a little bit of what we planned. It was a little bit
Sure.
not in order. Yeah, like Dr. Suraj Sarma from Triple IT and me supposed to host the session, but anyway,
Okay.
but anyway, no problem. We have we utilize the time more properly, and yeah, so maybe I don't know if anybody has any questions. So maybe yeah, I can have means I'll have a questions like yeah. So like we are trying really hard to collecting the data for many of these low resource languages. Like I started from first building the corpus in ODI when I started long back, and because that time I could not find any corpus for machine translation in English to ODI. So during my postdoc, so I built that. Then we tried to recently we find there was no tree bank in ODI till now. Then we made a tree bank in ODI, and also we found like many of the tools means many dialect detection, all those data actually we are collecting, and we are trying to release it. Now we are also working in Santali and Ho for machine translation, even tree bank we are releasing. But my question is like AI Bharat also they have also doing having the same similar initiatives like so how we can contribute, like for example like because students are there, but for example, okay, for data collection, it's a very huge effort. For example, now for tribal languages, we are there is no digital records are available. Even we have to volunteers has to type it manually, or the script, sometimes scripts is not supporting in OCR. So we are also struggling, but means how we process little bit faster and for benefit of the people.
No, very happy that you are doing this work, right? So we are also working in Odia and Santali, not Ho currently, but I think Odia Santali we are working on, and I think we should collaborate. So we have about in AI for Bharat about 80 people working currently, and these are language experts across all languages in India. We have 3 or 4 members from Odisha also, including an NGO. I forget the name now, but I can find out. Working in Santali. So our goal, you might have seen the work we have done in Samanantar, which has released parallel corpus in English and Odia, right? And I forget again the number, but it's pretty.
I saw our means our corpus has been used.
Yes. We have used your corpus, and then we have tried to mine more sentences and so on. So we should definitely collaborate, right? So there is quite a bit happening in this space. So please write to me, and we'll figure out a way to work together. We have the goal of creating, as I said, various models in Odia for the next 2 years. So I didn't mention this, but AI for Bharat is officially part of, we are the official data management unit of the government of India through what is called the Bhashini project, which was launched in the last budget. It has been allocated 500 crores by the government of India. So we have official support to do this work. We're also supported by Nandan Nilekani and team from Step Foundation, right? So we have therefore the resources. So we are happy to collaborate with students and with you and to accelerate things further, right? We have shared goals to do that. And I think in the next 2 years, we should really push the boundary in many of these things, right?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think that one will be really good, because now when we started Santali, then we found there are a lot of languages are there, those having not script like in tribal languages. So we are trying to build a dictionary of that. But thing is that the digitization is not there, and for example, even the volunteers, I think they have some kind of limitations, like they can collect the data. It's a very slow process. So to speed up those things, okay, some kind of collaboration will. I think it will be pushed.
We should do that.
Yeah.
We should
And I think maybe my co-host, I think Dr. Suraj Sharma, if he has anything to ask, because of this, it's not in proper order. We could not manage properly, but yeah.
So thank you very much, Dr. Pratish Kumar, for your insight related to AI and what you are doing. You're actually doing very tremendous work to enhance this AI space in India, and we really inspired with your work and what you told to our students and participants to do not use the shortcut to learn AI and the machine learning methods. So it is really inspiring, and I hopefully will collaborate with you in future. And so thank you very much for giving your time in this particular session, and we are very grateful that you are present here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Participants, thank you. So if participants has any other query, they can have the email ID of Dr. Pratish Kumar. They can directly ask them. So I think it will be okay with you, sir.
Yeah, it is okay. I just take 1 minute to answer one question on from Tapas on the healthcare, right? So AI in medical imaging, as you are hinting with Cure AI and Sigtuple and so on. Sigtuple was one of the first startups that was acquired by Apple from outside US, right? So there is quite a bit of potential in AI for medical or healthcare, and there's a lot of startups already in this space. In fact, in IIT Madras, there is an incubator specifically for healthcare technologies. It's called HTIC, Healthcare Technology Incubation Center, right? And I think you should look at it very carefully. There are two challenges in that space. One is that the areas of expertise are very different, right? One is programming, one is healthcare. So you typically need a combination of founders to come together with both expertise. And that is unfortunate in India. We don't have many colleges which have both medical and engineering degrees simultaneously because of regulations. That is changing. IIT Kharagpur already has a medical college coming up on campus. So that is one thing. So building cross expertise. The other thing is access to data. In India, healthcare data is firstly not digitized often, right, in standard formats. And secondly, if it is digitized, getting access to data is hard, right? We have some regulations, but also what is happening is, to be frank, right, all the healthcare people, they are almost selling data. It's not possible to buy data at a huge scale and to do these things. I am hoping that with the government's effort on digitizing healthcare, there are some things happening now. I'm part of it. There is a Ayushman Bharat Digital Healthcare Mission, where we are trying to create standards for healthcare and also creating formats and ways to access it programmatically. Only with something like that will many opportunities open up. But once that happens, right, there will be a huge range of opportunities. So keep an eye on that. There might be interesting things in the next 2-3 years. Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, so next, I'd like to request Santanu to take over this. So he will briefly tell about the summer school, like who are there, like who, if it is a school, like we call it like who will be the teacher, who will be the students, like who are like monitors. So that will be, so whatever. So about all these activities of the summer school, I think Santanu will clearly introduce it briefly. So next, I'll request Santanu to take over.
Thank you.
And also,
thank you, Dr. Shantipra. Yeah, you're saying something. Carry on, please.
I'll just like to thanks Dr. Suresh Sharma, who is co-host with me, although we could not in sync before the presentation, but yeah, it was a really nice.
Thank you, Shanti. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. A big thank to Dr. Pratyush, and except some glitches, I think things went on very well. Once Anjan entered into the arena, I think things became, we haven't any attack till now. Anyway, before we proceed to the further the next part of the program, I'll just briefly explain the things, briefly explain about some do and don'ts and the overall bird's eye view on the overall program, about the itineraries, about the agenda and all that. Let me just share the screen. Just give me a second. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
All right. So this is what we have to, all about the agenda of the whole curriculum. That is, I'll discuss about the vision and goal about our this summer school program. About the program committee, about the trainers, mentors, session chairs and volunteers, and some guidelines. As you all of must be knowing, and for your information, the idea behind this program or idea behind this system is to create a ODI ecosystem to make Odisha more vibrant, and in specifically in the field of IML capital, as to make Odisha as IML capital. Odisha should be known as the capital for the hub for all these things. The goal to empower the next generation, to make them employable, and all those intellectuals, those who are not at Odisha, those who are outside Odisha or in the overseas countries, to make them or to allow them to give back to Odisha for its development through last 12 months of roadmap of MIML initiatives. The credit goes to some of the experts, intellectuals like those great people, those whom you have already listened till now. Similarly, about this whole idea, about this summer school program, this internship program, it will be is a part of 12 months initiative. It's a 12-month of hard working. Odisha Corporate Foundation along with ODIML team. I mean, so jointly we are organizing it. And the idea behind it, the aim behind it is to provide the next gen participant with the best in class, world-class training on the broad range of advanced topics in AI/ML. I mean, in terms of development, including deep learning, including neural networks, and different project-based activities. It's a first kind of Odisha for the students. And the most idea behind it is, though no financial implications are involved. So participants should take advantage of it. And as far as the trainers are concerned, they are all global experts on the specific domain. And the course curriculum is designed by all those domain experts from those I have already told you, Odisha Corporate Foundation and ODIML core team members. They are experts in their own field. I mean, they are all known persons in AI/ML globally. And before I proceed further, let me just give you a participant summary. The idea how we have formed it. We have opened it for registration probably 15 days back. And the number of total participants reserved randomly, it's around 565, a visualization of that. And number of participants we have selected for the project, that is 100. Rest of the things can attend the classes. And out of that, we will have picked up 100 students based upon specific parameters. And so there will be others who can get a participant certificate, and those who have already participated in the project, they will get a project completion certificate along with it. And all those from keeping eye in certain parameters, we have filtered these 100 students out of these 565 eligible candidates. And as far as the schedule is concerned, the whole schedule follows like this. It has been after today's session, we'll have at 10 a.m. I mean, after my talk is over, I'll take another 5 to 10 minutes. We'll have Dr. Santipriya Parida and Dr. Suraj Sharma for this talk, and then Dr. Pratishwar, he has already told about the keynote talk is over. At 12 o'clock, we'll start with the next session. That will session chaired by Dr. Suraj Sharma and Dr. Sumita Sahu. They will discuss, I mean, then it will followed by Dr. Kirti Sundar Sahu on data visualization. And today's last session will be again on Python programming. That will be taken care by Soumendra Kumar Sahu and Manish Bisoi. Session will be chaired by Sumita Sahu and Dr. Suraj Sharma. Tomorrow we have the programs something like this. We have 3 sessions again tomorrow with different experts. We'll have computer vision, we'll have introduction to deep learning, we'll have regression taken. All those experts for tomorrow will be Abhijit Parida, Prabhu Teja, and Dr. Atish Sahu. And the similar way for the as far as then the next will be again on 25th of June. That will be again, we'll have 3 sessions by different experts. All right, that day we'll have ANN, we'll have NLP by Dr. Santipriya Parida. Session will be chaired by Dr. Manisha Satpathy and Dr. Manas Chaudhary. Clustering will be taken care by Dr. Satyaranjan Das. And the day 4, it will be on decision tree by Dr. Pitava Supati, and session will be chaired by Mrs. Kusumlata Patil and Dr. Satyaranjan Das. Then in the last part, we'll talk about we'll assign the projects, and on the basis of the projects, the mentors will be Dr. Samundar Sahu, Dr. Santipriya Parida, Anjan Panda, Dr. Satyaranjan Das, Pitava Supati, and Rakesh. So this is all about the whole curriculum. I mean, at the last session will be speech processing by Dr. Abhisankar Prasad. Okay, session will be chaired by Dr. Kusumlata Patil and Dr. Satyaranjan Das. And the last day, Sudhanshu Baladas and Ms. Saraswati Sahu will session the chair. And that day we'll discuss about ML tools and libraries. Swamendra Kumar Sahu and Subdarshi Panda will be the faculties. And the second session will be Dr. Damodar Sahu and Dr. Rakesh Balwant. They will be discussing on the incubation of AI/ML units, how to incubate these units, the business perspective. The third session will be a career plan, a career counseling, or a career talk on career in AI/ML. That will be Anjan Kumar Panda, who is a domain expert in that field. And the last one will be the valedictory section will be chaired by Mr. Shamanuja Das and feedback. Thanks. So that is what the total as far as the syllabus is concerned, as far as the curriculum is concerned. And for the whole session, the volunteers, those who they have been marked with O mark, so they will be that will be talk in communication with these coordinators, and we have used Discord for mini project discussions, meeting, and communication of participant with mentors. We have activated a Discord account also, so the students can get yourself included in that, get yourself join that Discord. And as far as the program committee is concerned, this is the 7 people are in program committee. Professor Aditya Parida, Dr. Santipriya Parida, Mr. Anjan Panda, myself, and Mr. Pradipta Misra, Professor Satyaranjan Das, Dr. Damodar Sahu, and Mr. Shamanuja Das, who are all in the program committee coordinating it. Today's keynote speaker was Dr. Pratish Kumar. You must have already listened, he has already given his talk. And throughout the session, the classes will be taken by Mr. Pradipta Misra, Dr. Santipriya Parida, Dr. Satyaranjan Das, Dr. Damodar Sahu, Kirti Sundar Sahu, Mr. Abhijit Parida, Dr. Abhishankar Prasad. And I mentioned their location as well as their designations also. Okay, Pradipta Misra, he is a director of AI for school, and Dr. Santipriya Parida, he is located at Finland. He is AI scientist. Dr. Satyaranjan Das is associate professor in KIIT, Bhubaneswar. Dr. Damodar Sahu is a mentor and global strategist with Wipro, USA. Dr. Kirti Sundar Sahu is a postdoctoral fellow in University of Waterloo, Canada. And Mr. Abhijit Parida, he is a data scientist, again at Children's National at USA. Dr. Abhishankar Prasad, he is a postdoctoral fellow and IDFA Research Institute, Switzerland. I am running, with a company, Samsoft. We are into data analytics, located at Delhi. We are into IML and data analytics specifically. Professor Pitabasupati, he is a professor of Amrita Vishwavidyapeeth, Bangalore. Mr. Anjan Panda, he is the founder of Odiagen Machine Learning USA. He is a global strategist, particularly in terms of AIML. And Prabhu Teja, he is a PhD scholar, EPFL Switzerland, research assistant, IDF Institute, Switzerland. They will be taking a class. So with a global expertise and a global perspective. As far as the mini projects mentors are concerned, Mr. Swamendra Sahu, Mr. Subhadarshi Panda, Dr. Santipriya Parida, Dr. Kusumlata Patial, Mr. Sambit Sekhar, Mr. Abhijit Parida, Dr. Ketan Kotwal, Professor Pitabasupati, Dr. Ravishankar Prasad, Mr. Sakyasingha Mahapatra, Mr. Prabhu Teja, Dr. Kirti Sundar Sahu, Mr. Aditya Kumar, and they are with the relevant domains: NLP, computer vision, image processing, speech processing, robotics, deep learning, data science, and art instruction platforms. So you can plan your project accordingly, so that we can decide we have a list of projects posted at GitHub. You can check them, and based upon that, any project can be taken, and accordingly the mentors can be alerted. The list of the session chairs from today, that is this is, for all the sessions, that has already I have told you, so don't have to. And throughout the week, throughout the session, you can be in touch with the volunteers. This slide has already been shared with you. So these are the email IDs and their corresponding phone numbers. For example, session chair and all that, you can talk any one of the volunteers if required. Only through mail or through chat. And for meeting coordinator, Zoom link, record live, Discord, all these things. You can have the list of the people, those who are responsible for that, their contact numbers. And for mini project coordinator and GitHub related, as I have already told you, they have already been posted. All the study materials has been posted and will be shared with you all. Then the responsibility for social media coordinator, event update, and other that is taken care by Anjan Babu. Dr. Santipri Parida is leading the team of faculties or lecture coordinators. We have a list of some organizations as volunteers or partners like iDreams, AnswerTech, and Engineer Without Borders. And some do and don'ts throughout the session. Please keep yourself mute throughout, and until unless it's required, don't unmute it. Because at a certain point of time, it, as you must have seen it, it creates disturbances. And please be on time. Join the session when it starts. In fact, 5 minutes before the session starts. Please don't. We have, that's it, from today's experience. We have activated the meeting room, so only will be allowing you to once you go through the meeting room. Once we make it ready, we'll post all the video recordings on YouTube. We'll try to live it from today's second in the second session carefully. So hope you will all cooperate with us. And at any point of time, any questions to be asked to the faculties should be asked only through the chat boxes. Don't interrupt the faculty while teaching. You can ask the chat boxes. We'll definitely respond to it. And make the class, the last part of the every class will be interaction. Be interactive in those 10-15 minutes. And you can also write to us on specific questions on specific projects or anything, any query about us, you can write to us on the given mail ID. And under any circumstances, if any queries, you can be either write to us, you can call any one of us, and you can clear your doubts or anything. I think that's all for the whole idea behind the whole concepts. So thank you. Hope and all the best. I hope you will all join in the next session after some time. I will start it. Dr. Santipriya, I think we'll start it at 12. You are mute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we can start at the next session.
Immediately, or we'll wait for we'll start at 12.
It's at 12 p.m.
12 p.m. Yeah, 12 p.m. India time.
So see you again at 12.
So thank you. So maybe we can end the session here, and at the end I can tell about this mini project. We'll share you all the information in the subsequent session. No problem.
Thank you all. Join before 5 minutes. At 11:55. So 12 o'clock we can start the session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Satyajit will address your questions in the subsequent classes.